This week at Macy's, get ready for a spring refresh with an extra 20% off with your coupon or Macy's card. Or check out amazing specials like Levi's jeans for all, now 30 to 40% off. New kids and baby looks, 50% off. And 1,250 thread count 4-piece sheet sets, just $39.99. Plus, Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift cards, services, and fees. More at Macys.com/Star Rewards. Savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply.
Call 1-888-FARMERS to switch, and you could save an average of $470 on your auto insurance. That's a lot of money in just a few minutes. With savings like that, you could be lounging on an impractical amount of ornate and overpriced throw pillows you bought for your couch. But you won't, because you're better with money than that. That's why you're calling us in the first place. Call 1-888-FARMERS to get a quote today.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Based on average nationwide annual savings survey data July to December 2020. Underwritten by Farmers Trucker Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliate. Products not available in every state.
This is your host, Tia. This is your host, Tia. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Top 10. Live. Geek Vibes Nation. Geek Vibes Nation. Nation. The Top 10. The Top 10.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing Top 10 by Geek Vibes Nation. I'm your host, Tia. Last week, we took a little bit of a break. It feels good to be back, to be talking with all you guys. And unfortunately, I don't have my co-host, Brittany, with me today. She had to tend to some personal matters, but I do have a very exciting guest co-host today. One of my longest, I don't know if that sounds right, but one of my longest time friends, if that makes sense, but one of the best, the person who has just been in my life for so long, and he actually also now does the video clips of my top 10s that you may have seen on my Instagram and Twitter page. It is my very, very, very good friend, Bryant Jager. How are you today?
Oh my God, I feel so honored, Tia. I wasn't expecting all that. Got me tearing up over here.
Brittany's always like, "Oh my God, that's the nicest that you ever been to me when you introduced me."
And every other time it's just downhill. Dearest friend, I would say. We've known each other for more than half our lives right now, so that's a pretty long time.
It is. Whatchamacallit, I believe that you and Cindy still are the only people who I would still consider friends from my high school age. And I believe it was you who even said some years ago that if you're friends for more than 7 years, you're going to be friends for life.
Pretty much. If you can, friendship, I think, is one of those things where you can kind of just not talk to the person for so long and pick it up from where you left off, and that seems to be our relationship. But I'm glad we finally got to make this work out. It feels great to be on.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Brian and I were both very creative people. When we both graduated college, we tried our hands at another podcast and all that, and it went really well. It's just that I think that we were too young. We didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't know how maybe to pick up momentum. We had the talent. We just didn't have the outlet to do it.
Yeah, that was such a great time. And I've always told Tia that you need to put your voice out there, and to be on your show, what? That's fucking awesome.
My top 10 with Tia. It's really exciting. And I'm happy to have you on the top 10. So I say this all the time, and Paulie knows this, that I'm not the biggest fan of Valentine's Day, and neither is he, which is great.
Perfect dynamic.
But it is Valentine's Day, and people do love this holiday. So, it's always good to do top 10s that have to do something with whatever's going on at the time. So we decided to do the top 10 best couples in movies and TV shows. And I'm pretty excited for it, even though, again, Valentine's Day is like not my holiday, but I still think that it's going to be great. And this is your first top 10. And of course, because it is your first top 10, you get to go first. You start us off. What would you say? Yeah, I like putting my guests on the spot.
I could see that. Wasn't expecting that, but time to jump right in.
Exactly. Actually, before you go with the number 10, of course, I wanted to give a quick shout out to some of our friends over at Geek Vibes Nation, specifically our friends over at Stranger Damies, who are the Real Play D&D podcast. They're from the main Damie family of podcasts. We had Dan on 2 weeks ago, and they're amazing, so make sure you check that out. Of course, we always promote them. We always like to give them a little bit of love in the beginning of the top 10, since they always give this podcast love in the beginning of their podcast. So make sure you check that out. And Bryant, let's dive right in. What's your number 10?
Sure. My number 10. Well, before I start my number 10, I must say I had a fun time doing some research on some of these couples because I was looking at what my version of best couples in movies and television, and I found some problematic ones, but we can get to those later. But let's keep it normal for now, and we'll get messy later. The person on the top of my list right now, Tia, this might bring back some nostalgia for you, is Emily Thorne and Daniel Grayson in Revenge.
Oh my God, yes!
Oh my God.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just to kick it off. I knew you would like that. So the reason why Tia and I both had that reaction is because the both of us were obsessed with a show called Revenge on ABC. It had, I believe, about 4 seasons. If you haven't checked it out, do so. I feel like it wrapped up the season so well, the series finale so well, and it was always this dynamic between the main character Emily and the rich son Daniel, and then you would always have the troubled mother who tried to get in the way and just ruin everything. But I feel like the very last season kind of just like put their relationship so perfectly, despite all the drama within the season. But yeah, that one, I was just like, I have to put them on the list because I just remember Tia and I gushing over these two characters like, oh my God.
Fun fact, the actor and actress who played these characters are married in real life, which is super interesting.
Yeah. Oh
yeah. And I've definitely mentioned Revenge before on this podcast. I believe we did a podcast, something like, shows that were canceled, say, too quickly. And the thing is about Revenge is that even though the 4th season did wrap up really well, I think they were hoping for another season, but when it didn't get renewed, they I think were like, okay, now we at least know. They were waiting the entire time during the 4th season, and they literally had, I think, a few episodes left to film when they got the news that they weren't going to get a 5th season. So they're like, all right, let's, wrap everything up, which I appreciate. But Emily and Daniel, and the thing is, I didn't like them at first, right? Because we knew what, Emily's, her intentions were, right, with Daniel. But then I think when everything was on the table, it was like he became a good person the last episode before he, spoiler alert, died. So then suddenly it was like, oh wait, shit, I kind of like Daniel, and I think they're perfect. And you definitely brought up nostalgia. My mom's gonna love hearing this because you know how much Louise loved Revenge.
Louise loved Revenge. She was like, that Daniel better treat Emily right.
Or else he's not coming to the family dinner.
Not coming to the dinner. Shout out to Louise.
Shout out to Louise. I loved Revenge. I mean, I don't know. It was such a good show, and I hated that it got canceled and all that. But I am happy that the actress played by Emily Emily Van Camp is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so at least she's getting work. You got to do shout out to the girl.
Yeah, and you know what? As much as I wanted it to go on, I'm glad they wrapped up the whole series, because I think it was like a span of 3 episodes with this arc of putting everything together. They could have easily ruined it, so I'm glad they put it together in such a nice and tasteful way that I was like, okay, I'm satisfied as the viewer.
Well, yeah, I mean, that happens so many times with shows where they start out really good and then suddenly it just seems like they're trying to stretch it out and you're like, please end already. Like my mom all the time will be like, oh, Revenge should have kept going. And it's like, I agree, the selfish part of me wanted it to keep going, but I said 4 seasons is solid. It told the story it wanted to, and it was really good. So I'm fine with the ending. I mean, Emily and Jack sail away, and that's all I could ever hope for.
Yeah.
So great way to start off the list, Brian.
Thank you.
Seriously. That was great. And certainly as a fan of Revenge, I am living for this. But I'm going to hit number 9. And so, Brian, stop me if you've never seen this movie on Netflix, but it's called The Lovebirds.
Tia, oh my God. I was seconds away of putting that on my list. You have no idea. But please go on, please.
Oh my God. So it's so funny. I am not I don't mean to sound like a bah humbug when it comes to love, because obviously I'm in a very long-term relationship, but
a very loving relationship, and you're just like,
yeah. But the thing is I hate romantic comedies because they always just seem so forced. As someone who's in a relationship, I'm like, it's not like that. You watch them and you're like, it's not like that. But for some reason, when The Lovebirds came out, whatchamacallit it, on Netflix, starring, and I know I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly, but Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae. When that movie came on Netflix, I think I watched the movie twice in a row because I was like, wait, that was funny as hell. I gotta go back and watch that. And then I think I even suggested it to my mom, who watched it, and she was like, oh my God, that's great. And so for those who haven't watched it, the 2 main characters, Gibran and Leilani, they play this couple that I think have been together for maybe 5 years or something. And it starts initially with them meeting and how great their relationship is, and then quickly jumps ahead to after 5 years and them, essentially falling into a rut and breaking up. But then of course things go haywire when they are literally witness to a crime, and they have to work together to find out who the real culprit is. And of course, along the way, they realize how much they actually do love each other. And it is just so funny. The 2 actors have such great chemistry with each other. It's one of those romantic comedies that's legitimately funny. It has a plot, and it's not just kind of dumb, really. It's a good, it's a well thought out romantic comedy. So Bryant, since you were seconds away to putting it on your list, what did you think of Lovebirds?
First of all, I'm obsessed with Issa Rae. I watched it knowing that it was going to be good, because anything that she's in, I'm never unsatisfied, and I'm just like, yep, this is exactly what I wanted. I just loved it. I love how real it felt. I love their relationship dynamic. It wasn't a typical, and I love that it was 2 people of color too. Which is something that you don't see so typical, but now with everything going on, I feel like you see more of the diversity and more interesting relationships. So
it was important to show that, to show these 2 people of color and what their relationships are like, because you're right. You see primarily these romantic comedies, and the couple that's they're focusing on are 2 white people. And so to give a voice to people of color, and I believe that, I can't imagine that Issa Rae didn't have something to do with the production of Lovebirds, just because isn't she the person behind Insecure?
Yeah, Issa, that is her baby.
Which I think I heard that it's coming to an end. You watched that show. How do you feel about that?
I it hurts. It was funny because I remember her posting something about like, "Yay, filming the 5th season," and then her Twitter fandom replied very appropriately, and they were just like, "Fuck you! Why would you do this?" Blah, blah, like basically just saying she can go somewhere with her smile, but they say it in a loving way because I feel like people followed along the characters of Issa and Molly on the show, and it really brought people together. I don't think there has been a TV show that's united like people, especially the Black community like that, where it's like, oh my god, did you see what Issa did this week? But I'm very sad. I wish it could go on forever, but I know, just like what we talked about with revenge, you can't keep dragging something out, and eventually it needs to kind of like dissipate. So
No, absolutely. And the good thing always about a show knowing that they're coming to an end means that they can actually map out an ending, as opposed to thinking that they're going to continue and doing the show and then the network deciding, hey, we're not going to renew this. And then you're like, well, I just wrote a cliffhanger and filmed a cliffhanger. I didn't, film a conclusion. And now these poor fans are forever just going to sit there going, well, no idea what the hell happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I also, by the way, love Kumal just because. So I haven't seen a lot of his work, but I love him just for the sense that he's going to be in another Marvel movie, and you know how much I love the Marvel movie. So it's like anytime someone is in a Marvel movie, it's like I don't even really know you that much, but you're part of the fam, so that's what matters.
Yeah, as long as you're part of the family, it could be anybody. It could be a rock. You're part of the fam, so true.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's going to be my number 9 for those who are listening. If you have not checked out Lovebirds, it's on Netflix. It's an easy watch. As I said, Kumal and Issa have a fantastic chemistry with each other. Honestly, that's a movie that I wouldn't mind if they did a sequel to. And I don't always feel that romantic comedies like warrant sequels, but if they want to do a sequel to it, I'd be right there watching it. So yeah, number 9, Lovebirds. Bryant, why don't you give us your number 8?
For sure. Also, I wanted to point out before I went into number 8, absolutely, because you mentioned the word chemistry. And fun fact about me, I'm an actor. Ooh.
Yes, so, I'm so sorry that I'm so used to having my co-host like Brittany here that it's like, oh yeah, you guys haven't ever, like, I know you, so I figured like those who are listening know you. But yes, Bryant is an actor. Please continue.
Yeah, no, you're totally fine. But when you said the word chemistry, it just reminds me of the audition process and putting two people together, especially for lead roles. So you mentioned the people in Lovebirds and the chemistry reads and what it really takes for two people to feel comfortable and seeing how the relationship plays out in camera. And chemistry is not always the easiest thing to pick up on camera. So with all these mentions, it's kind of like also kudos to the casting director and the people behind the scenes who really highlighted the chemistry between these characters.
Yeah, and before you say your number 8, it's funny you mentioned that. So you know how much of, or I'm not sure if you know, but I'm a huge fan of this show called American Gods, right?
Yes.
And the lead actor, Ricky Whittle, does something every Monday where he has like a fellow actor from the show come onto his Instagram and they do like an hour segment, and it's really cool. So he did a segment with this one actor, Eric Johnson, where they talked about, say, like love scenes, right? And how awkward they are to film and how utterly like bad they are and embarrassing. But then they'll have people say, come up to them and be like, oh, that was such a great, scene that you did. I watched it, blah, blah, blah. And they said something along the lines of like, that's just the beauty of filmmaking, that they can take something that literally feels like your most embarrassing day on set and make it look actually good. Because they were saying how it's their most dreaded like day on set when they have to do that, because Ricky was saying, like, people will come up to him and be like, oh, you get to do all these amazing, sex scenes with all these really beautiful actresses. And he's like, it's really weird because they're your friend. And it's like, so you're having to do this scene with your friend while your other friend films it and all your other friends are in the room telling you what to do. And I'm like, I never thought of it like that. And I'm like, that does sound incredibly awkward. So it's just the power of like the filmmaking process and the chemistry that two actors can have with each other.
Yeah, because imagine just like being on a set with 10, 20 people, boom mic in your face, just like they're watching you and saying, okay, go.
Yeah, no, it would be incredibly embarrassing for me. So I just wanted to mention that to piggyback on what you had said. But what's your number 8 for our top 10?
Yeah, to kind of continue with the nostalgia, if you remember a little show called Orange is the New Black, I'm not going to pick the obvious choice, but I'm going to pick Pusey and So-So.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, really quick before you go into your explanation, I want to tell you that I actually stopped watching Orange is the New Black after Pusey was killed because I just couldn't get over it. I never watched like what happened afterwards. I don't know if you continued with the show.
I think I didn't watch the last season, so I still have that, and I was contemplating to pick it back up, but that was hard. That was a hard ending.
Yes, very much so. But why don't we talk about the happier things and explain why you pick Pusey and So-So for this top 10?
For sure. I think when viewers first watched, or I can only speak for myself really, when I first watched Orange is the New Black and seeing the character as Pusey and how like rough around the edges and hard she was, and then when they introduced So-So's character and how young and naive she seemed, and the both of them kind of like balanced each other out to where you saw a softer side of Pusey and then the more harder side of So-So. And also including that both of these people are people of color and minorities, so shout out to that.
I'm glad that the show didn't decide to go with Pusey and Tasty because, the two of them being such friends, it could have been really easy for them to say, well, let's now transform that friendship into a romantic, relationship. So I'm glad that they didn't do that. I'm glad that they went in a different direction. And to be honest, like the character of So-So when she came onto the scene wasn't I didn't like her the most because just of how her character was. So her pairing up with Pusey, who's such a likable character, they just really balanced each other out, as you said. And I just loved Pusey in general. Like when they first introduced her in the show, I was like, I love this girl. And their relationship was a really great relationship. And again, as we just said, Pusey's death, I will never get over.
Yeah. And nor shall you. Still.
No, I know. It was great. Like Orange is the New Black was like this great show. And I'm glad that you didn't go with the obvious, because I think their relationship kind of got annoying at some point with Alex and oh my God, what the hell was
Piper.
the main girl's name? Piper. The relationship got annoying after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the typical choice. And I was like, let's not be typical.
No, exactly. That's what this top 10 is all about, is just kind of expanding and giving way. Like to me, I like to not really pick, say, the obvious choices because I'm like, there's a bunch of other articles that are going to do, say, like best couples for Valentine's Day, and they're always going to go with the most obvious. And I'm like, there are more in movies and TV shows than the obvious, and I like to put those typically on my top 10.
Yeah.
But no, that's a great pick. I love it. I have to go to my list to see what I want to put for number 7 here. Let's see who I'm going to do. So I talk about not being like basic or anything like that, but I am going to pick something that like everyone, like the majority of our listeners here are going to know what the hell I'm talking about. Brian, have you been watching WandaVision, or have you at least heard of it?
And I was convinced from a coworker yesterday to start watching it, and I made a promise to myself to start watching it, so I will be doing that very soon.
It's a very interesting dynamic, and I won't ruin anything for you since you haven't watched it, but it's very interesting from, say, the perspective of someone like us who really is interested in the TV making process, because every episode is in the same vein of, say, shows during a certain era. Like the first episode is in the 1950s, the second is in the 60s and 70s, 80s, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to pick, though, the characters Wanda and Vision from WandaVision, which is very basic if you're listening to this podcast, but I can't help it. I love them as a couple together. If you're an MCU fan, you have sat there and watched Wanda and Vision and their romance with each other kind of develop, from, say, the first movie that they were both introduced to in Age of Ultron, where they had barely any interaction, to Infinity War when they were a full-on couple, and, unfortunately, Wanda had to witness Vision's death in that movie and yada yada. But, this is a couple that has deep ties to the comic books. People, love them together. They're a great couple. And so I wanted to put them on the list because I love Elizabeth Olsen. Like, Brian, our age group was used to seeing the Olsen twins. And like, who knew that years later it would actually be this other sibling that I had never heard of her before the Marvel movies. I was like, wait, there's another Olsen? And it's like, who would know that? It's like, who would think that she would be as big as she was? But I think her and Paul Bettany have such a great chemistry with each other that you can't help but watch them in WandaVision.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be my number 7. Brian, you are in for a treat when you watch WandaVision. I'm telling you, you're going to love it.
Okay. I will probably be screaming like, why didn't I do this sooner? So wait.
It's a nice what am I going to say? It's a nice substitute until we can actually go to, say, the movies, since we can't do that at all. Yeah, I don't know what a movie theater is.
What are you talking about?
Before we go to the next one, I want to get your opinion on this, right? Because this is like a big discussion. In New York, like, the movie theaters are not open. I understand that in other states, I think some are open to a degree, but it's a big discussion in like the geeky world of, should Marvel put its like movies on the Disney Plus streaming for this year, because Warner Brothers decided to put all of their content on HBO Max. And people are super divided about that, whether they should just wait for the movie theaters to reopen or they should put their movies on streaming services. And as a film buff and someone who is an actor, I mean, what are your thoughts with that? Do you say, hey, let's wait till the movie theaters open, or are you like, who knows when freaking movie theaters are going to open? Let's just put these things on streaming services.
I mean, there's so many different arguments nowadays, because you have the first argument of like the experience of being at a movie theater and Nickelodeons, and how being in a theater will give you a different like experience with experiencing all these emotions with people together, whether it's a horror film, a rom-com, whatever. But then you also have to look at it in a financial set point of, say if movies are at a 25% capacity, is it even worth airing the movie because you're not going to make much money and it's wasting more like product or just like to put the movie together, versus if somebody purchases the movie at home to watch it, you'll still be making a revenue. But then the opposite side of that is what happens if people start ripping the movies and then like, I don't even know what the kids use nowadays. I think of Napster, but if people start, yeah, I brought it there. Napster and LimeWire. I think LimeWire was for music though, but it's so many different arguments of like the experience of it and then making a revenue, because I'm only assuming that all these companies are losing so much money because they're not able to produce such big budgets and constantly pushing things and like the whole dates and all that stuff. So
yeah, I definitely understand the arguments for both sides. Like for me, and again, I'm not in the business, so my opinion just comes from a consumer point, even though I do try to put myself in the shoes of the people, because it is a business. So for me, I'm like, all right, well, the best bet would be to do this as like a hybrid, right? Release the movies in the theaters that for the states who actually have theaters open, but then also offer it for a fee on a streaming service for those who can't go to the movie theater. And again, that just comes from like a selfish standpoint, because I'm like, listen, these Marvel movies, like every movie had to be pushed back and we barely saw any in 2020. And now we're coming upon where we're inching closer to all these movie, premiere dates, but nothing has changed. And I'm like, what, are you going to push it to 2022 now?
exactly.
I'm going to be dead before most of these freaking movies come out.
Oh, no, you'll just have another reason to stay home to watch all these movies. So.
Oh, I was never that big of like a movie person. Anyway, like, do you remember back when we were in high school and you didn't even say pick what movie you wanted to see? You were just like, hey, let's go to the movie theater and whatever's playing, the earliest, we'll go see that. Like,
Literally.
I don't think any kid does that today at all.
No, because our attention span has dwindled and it's like, I don't want to watch this, or they'll watch the movie while being on their phones.
I hate that. That's why I loved the Alamo, because if you dare to be on your phone, they could kick you out for it. Like, I hated that.
Even if you're Madonna, and look up that story if you don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't, actually.
Don't? So
No.
Madonna, so the story goes, apparently Madonna went to the Alamo in Westchester, Yonkers, and she got kicked out because she kept on going on her phone.
Stop. That's the movie theater that I used to go to all the time. Like, when movie theaters are open, I'm telling you, they're strict. They don't give a shit. Like, they have rules and you have to obey them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I didn't know that. You learned something new.
Call 1-888-FARMERS to switch and you could save an average of $470 on your auto insurance. That's a lot of money in just a few minutes. With savings like that, you could be lounging on an impractical amount of ornate and overpriced throw pillows you bought for your couch. But you won't, because you're better with money than that. That's why you're calling us in the first place. Call 1-888-FARMERS to get a quote today.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Based on average nationwide annual savings survey data July to December 2020, underwritten by Farmers Truck or Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliate. Products not available in every state.
Every day. But Bryant, why don't you give us your number 6 couple for our top 10?
Sure. And this isn't necessarily a couple, and the people who watch the show will kind of know what I'm talking about, but my number 6 is Eve and Villanelle from Killing Eve. I don't know if you've heard or watched this show before, Tia.
Wait, they still haven't gotten them together? I watched the first season.
Yeah, I'm a little behind in the seasons, but for people who don't know, it's on BBC and it's starring Sandra Oh, who's amazing. And Eve is, I wouldn't want to say like regular pedestrian character, but Eve has a normal job, and Villanelle is a killer. I think Eve is a part of some sort of like intelligence agency, and their dynamic of Eve trying to capture Villanelle and Villanelle tried to kill Eve, and they both have these moments where they meet each other and they kind of get off at the whole chase and don't necessarily do anything about it, and it just builds throughout the series, and it's just great to watch their dynamics together.
So I watched the first season because it was on Hulu, I think. And then at that point, the second season wasn't on Hulu yet, so I just never got a moment to catch back up. But oh my gosh, Sandra Oh, and who's the actress who plays Villanelle? Did you say that?
Jodie Comer, I believe her name is.
Yeah, Jodie Comer. They have talk about chemistry. Their chemistry is so great with each other. The first season I watched was really fantastic. Such a smart show. And both actresses just do fantastic work. But yeah, they had great chemistry. I would definitely count them as a couple. Because especially towards that end of the first season, they were really just kind of like leaning in heavy that something was going to happen between them.
I know. It's amazing. It's great. I love them.
No, they're fantastic. They really are. And I'm glad that they win all of the awards that they actually win. They're so good. Like, and I had never really seen Sandra Oh in anything prior to Killing Eve. Because I never watched Grey's Anatomy. I know that everyone knows Grey's Anatomy. I never watched it.
And you know what? When I was thinking of stuff in this list, I'm like, I can't put anything from Grey's Anatomy. First of all, because no. Second of all, as much of a fan I am of Grey's Anatomy, the cheese factor is to the extreme. So I'm just like, like the Meredith and Derek stuff. I'm just like, nah. So. I actually just finished reading Shonda Rhimes' book right now, The Year of Yes.
What is that about?
She basically commits to a challenge for herself of saying yes to any opportunities that come her way and doesn't like stray away from it, which led to like her doing interviews, led to her giving commencement speeches and all this stuff, and it kind of like took her out of her own shell just by just like the yes man, somebody who just says yes to everything.
Right. Yeah, she's huge right now. I mean, the projects that she does, and it's almost like a guarantee that any project she does is going to just be received really well. Because I believe she did that Netflix miniseries about the Central Park 5, I believe, and that was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really great. But I love that you put Eve and Villanelle. I love that too because it takes place like internationally. And I just love Europe because I'm like, oh, I want to travel so badly. So I'll just live through the fact that they're, in Paris and here and this and that.
We gonna go.
I say that all the time. Well, Bryant, though, has like, for those who are listening in, he lived the dream a few years ago. He did like his own little Eat, Pray, Love tour around the world, and he got to see so many places.
I got to see all the places. No, I went to Thailand for 3 weeks, and I Euro tripped for 3 weeks, and you don't even have to go that far. And I think now that we're still kind of like stuck indoors and in a pandemic, I would encourage anybody who hasn't like traveled outside of their own comfort zone to kind of just try it, because getting to know yourself in circumstances like that, even if it's like a trip to Denver, even if it's a trip 15 minutes away from where you live, I don't know, just try something new.
Just try something new. I love it. I love it so much. So that's Bryant's number 6. I'm going to take number 5. Now, you inspired me. I wasn't originally going to put this on the list because, I was like, who wants to hear me talk about Sex and the City for the umpteenth time on this podcast? But you know what? I'm doing it.
You know what? I expected it to. So
Okay. For those who are listening, if you don't know Sex and the City, all seasons are on HBO Max, so you can go check that out. But there are plenty of couples in Sex and the City. I mean, there's a lot of dating. The fact that sex is literally in the title of the show, and it's an HBO show. Like when I was a kid, I knew that like if a show was on HBO and my parents were watching it, that it was like not safe for children to watch. And so when I got older and watched Sex and the City, got into the stories of all the characters, and it takes place with these four women, one of them being Charlotte. And the couple that I want to put down is Charlotte and Harry. And a quick little, explanation as to why is Charlotte was the character that always wanted to get married, always wanted to find her soulmate. She finds this guy, Trey, who she initially thinks is, just such a good catch. He's really good looking. He comes from a very wealthy family. He's a doctor. Everything for her points in the direction of this is going to be great. And she gets married to him, and it's like, absolutely a disaster. They have terrible communication. They have problems having children. His, Trey's mother is overbearing, blah, blah. And after I think about 2 seasons or something I forget how many seasons they were together for, but they end up divorcing, and Charlotte's lawyer ends up being this guy, Harry, who is the complete opposite of like what Charlotte was looking for. He's, bald, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's in the context of the show, so it's all in like, say, in their mind, where it's like, oh, well, he's not really good looking. He's bald. He doesn't have the best body. He's, really like, he eats sloppily, and he's not the person that like Charlotte thought that she would be with, right? But for some reason she finds herself like completely just enamored with him, and they start this relationship. She converts to Judaism for him. He accepts the fact that she can't have children biologically, and he's totally fine with it, whereas Trey wasn't. And their relationship is just great. All right, their relationship is just great. There's at some point where they break up, and it's really emotional, and you're sitting there going, oh my God, please get back together. And they have this really emotional like scene where they get back together, and it's just great, Bryant. Like, I love them as a relationship. I thought that like Harry was the best guy, and they're just I just think they're a great couple. So that's going to be my number 5.
Well, I can't contribute anything to this because I've never watched the episode of Sex and the City. But what I will say
too bad
is
Cindy isn't here.
I know. I mean, if Cindy was here, you guys could probably have a whole episode on Sex and the City, top 10 moments. But just from everything that you described, it seems like what is more realistic of a relationship. So that's awesome that they portray characters like that for real and talk about real stuff instead of like making it glitz and glamour. So.
Well, I'll say this for the show, because obviously from the outside it looks very superficial, where you're like, here are these, 4 very well-to-do women and them just running around in Prada and Gucci around the city. And certainly there are episodes that are very, say, superficial, but it does have to do with infertility, death, cancer. And there's a lot in the show that is very realistic. Like, I'll tell you this, right? Sex and the City, I think, came out during the time where, like, the AIDS crisis was still very much a thing. And they tackled that, because you're sitting there going, like, all of them, but one of them in particular is very promiscuous. And it's like, how are they handling that? And I think they handled it very well. My whole point being is that the show did handle like real life things. It wasn't all just like, oh my God, look, we're in our Louis Vuitton shoes and da 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 da, even though of course that is there as well.
Yeah,
it made
we
you
are
definitely,
in our Louis Vuitton.
It made you definitely think like, oh my God, I can make a living in New York City writing a fucking column. And in real life, it's like, when is that ever going to happen?
Yeah, no, that's not real.
Oh my god. So yeah, that's my number 5. Bryant, what's your number 4?
My number 4, to continue the nostalgia train like I was
Girl,
before.
tell us about the nostalgia today.
I know. And I'm hoping you have watched this show once upon a time, but there were 2 characters by the name of Willow and Tara from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I have not. I'm sorry, but please explain to me and the audience why you think they're such a great couple.
For people who don't know Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Allison Hannigan was part of the OG cast from the beginning, and the first couple of seasons it was her, and kind of just like didn't really focus much on like relationship stuff from off the top of my head of what I can remember. And then the character of Tara gets introduced, and it shows a different side because Tara has an attraction towards the character of Willow, which is Allison Hannigan's character. And I think this was in the early 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s, where it was still kind of like displaying LGBTQ characters on air was kind of like a very touchy subject. So they highlighted that very well, and I feel like those characters were just great. And spoiler alert, I don't know if you were planning on watching it, but Tara tragically dies at the end of the 6th season because of like a gunshot. So it's very sad and very abrupt and emotional. So,
Aw, yeah, I never watched Buffy. I think I tried to go back and watch it, but I think like, and I don't mean to insult anyone who is a big like Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, but I think like watching it now, the production value is very bad. And it's like maybe if I had watched it when I was younger and was a fan of it, I'd have those like fond feelings towards it, but I don't. So, but of course I know that Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like, you know, just gave this like new life to so many people in, say, like the fantasy sci-fi like fandoms. And I do remember that remember when the freaking Twilight movies came out?
oh, I have this whole section for honorable mentions.
Oh my god. No. Well, I was gonna say, oh my god, I was gonna say that when those movies came out, like all of the memes on Facebook were like, "Don't get an Edward, get a what was the guy in Buffy that like Buffy was
Angel?
romantic? Is that the guy with the blonde hair, the vampire that like she really liked or something?
I don't.
Or was that Spike or something was his name? No?
Spike.
Yes.
Um,
Something like that. The memes were like along those lines, where they would be like, "Don't be like Bella, be like Buffy." And even though I never watched Buffy, I was like, well, Buffy's a kick-ass like female character. She's not Bella. Thank God. Yeah. I am looking forward to your honorable mentions. That kind of scares me now that I mentioned Twilight and you said that. That scares me, Bryant.
I love it. I love it so much.
Oh my God. But I'm sure that plenty of people who are listening are going to agree with you because they are Buffy fans. And yeah, oh wow, you are really right that like back then seeing LGBT representation was such like a scarcity. And I'm sure like at the time of putting that in, they weren't sure how it was going to be received, but like thank God that they did.
Yeah.
So that's great. So that's your number 4. We are getting down to the final 3 here, and I'm going to go for the number 3. Now, I know you didn't watch this show, but I'll ask anyway. Did you ever watch a little show on CW that came out a couple of years ago called iZombie?
I think we spoke about this once before. I know the show. I never watched it.
Okay. iZombie is one of my favorite shows. Like I just love obscure shows that people have really never watched, and I'm sitting here going, "No, it was really good. Check it out." But for a quick, so the people that I'm going to mention here are the main character Liv and her boyfriend in the first season called Lull. And the reason why I love them, so just to give a backstory for everyone, iZombie, it obviously has to do with zombies. Think of, say, the movie Warm Bodies, where a zombie
Yes.
eats a brain and they, get the memories of whoever they ate. But instead of like in Warm Bodies, where the main character was kind of like trudging along, like these zombies are fully functioning, talking individuals. But in the first season, there really aren't a lot of zombies and they're hiding it from the world. It eventually comes to the point, like in the fourth and fifth season, where like the whole world knows about zombies. But in the first season, Liv is really the only one, and she's hiding it from all of her loved ones. She broke up with her fiance because of it, and she meets this guy Lowell, who she finds out is also a zombie. And I just love their relationship. They had such a cute relationship. They danced together, they played music together. It's like they got each other. Their relationship was just so great. And I thought that they had like a tremendous amount of chemistry with each other. More so than her ex-fiance, who they kept trying to get her back together with. And I never thought that they had good chemistry with each other. But I just loved Liv and Lowell. Spoiler alert, Lowell gets killed towards the end of season 1, which is the reason why they're not together anymore. And I'm always like,
That's a valid
R.I.P.
reason.
Lowell. Yeah, that's a valid reason for them not being with each other. He died. I just love their relationship so much. And I know that I just spoiled that for you, Bryant, but it's on Netflix. You should still check out iZombie. It's amazing.
Fair.
I see you keep looking, by the way.
I'm looking at my ever-growing list.
But yeah, no, iZombie was a great little show. It ran for 5 seasons on the CW. And the main actress, Rose McIver, to me is just a really talented person, because literally every episode she had to play a different person, because in iZombie, not only do they get the memories of whoever's brain that they eat, they also get personality traits. So she just had to play like a different person every single episode, and it was just amazing. And Lol was amazing as well. So hashtag relationship goals, live in Lol, always living in my head rent free. But Bryant, let's get back to you. What's your number 2?
Do we want to do our number 2 and 1, or do we want to do the honorable mentions?
I like to keep the honorable mentions for afterwards, especially if we have some that we're going to be roasting a little too, which
Fair.
it sounds like on your end. So
Fair.
I like to always do that afterwards. So let's do the actual list, and then we'll have fun with the honorable mentions.
I love it. My number 2, and it might be obvious, it might be cheesy, but I think it's appropriate, and I don't really need to talk much about it. Homer and Marge.
Oh my god. Okay.
We didn't
That
specify which.
That inspires me for my number 1, but go ahead. Sorry.
There's not really much to say if you don't know these characters, if you did not grow up with them. I don't know which rock you're living under, but that's all I got to say, really.
That's fair enough. Considering The Simpsons have been on for the past years, I think we've all grown up with them, with Homer and Marge.
I think The Simpsons are older than us.
I mean, thank God something is. Every time I look at something on the internet, they're like, this is 20 years old. And I was like, wait, no, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, oh my God, I'm 30. Like, thank God something's older than us.
Something, right?
We're older than Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, SpongeBob, we're older than a lot of things. I used to be a big fan of The Simpsons. I haven't watched it probably in the last 10 years, but I went to the frickin' movie theater to go see the movie and everything back when we all thought it was ending, and they were just like, no plans to end The Simpsons. But
they're like on the 32nd season. I just looked up. Oh my God.
God. Yeah, Homer and Marge. I mean, again, as you said, not much else to say. They are like the longest standing TV couple. How Marge handles Homer, I don't know, because he's literally a man-child. But for some reason, they keep together 32 years strong. They're, they're just the couple, man.
One of a kind.
One of a kind. Oh my God. All right. You inspired me for my number one here. But before we get to the number one, I always like to go through what we've already mentioned before we get there. So this was our top 10 best couples in movies and TV shows. We have for number 10, Emily Thorne and Daniel Grayson. For number 9, we have Gibran and Leilani from Lovebirds. Number 8, we have Poussey and Soso from Orange is the New Black. For number 7, we have Wanda and Vision from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Number 6, we have Eve and Villanelle from Killing Eve. Number 5, we have Charlotte and Harry from Sex and the City. Number 4, we have Willow and Tara from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Number 3, we have Liv and Lowell from iZombie. Number 2, we have Homer and Marge from The Simpsons. And you inspired me for my number 1, and it's going to be Bob and Linda from Bob's Burgers.
Oh, my heart swims.
Oh my God. So even though I don't watch The Simpsons anymore, I don't watch Family Guy, I don't watch American Dad, but I still watch Bob's Burgers.
Damn
because
right.
it is amazing. And Bob and Linda are the true epitome of hashtag goals. Love them. Oh my God. Love them. Bob is just amazing. Linda is hilarious. They love each other. They're a real couple. Like, the thing is that when they show, like, again, I haven't watched Simpsons in a while, so I can't remember their dynamic. But when they showed, say, Family Guy or American Dad, it's like I never really felt like those two couples were very realistic. They were obviously just parodies, but it's like Bob and Linda are real. But yeah, so Bob and Linda, again, hashtag goals. I love it. I have told my mom like numerous times that you guys always say that she reminds you of Linda.
Yes.
And I love it. Like, to me, I find it endearing. I think because she doesn't know the character, she's like, oh, what do you mean? I find them, like, what reminds them of me? And it's like, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And it's hilarious.
Yeah, they're hashtag goals. I think the kids use hashtags still. But they're just everything. And they have their amazing children. Shout out to Tina.
What should I call it? Oh my God, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Speaking about like the kids still use hashtags, have you seen like things where it's like Gen Z doesn't like millennials doing like the side parts or the laughing emojis, and I'm like, what the fuck?
I have no comment for that. Like the Gen Zs with their dumbass dances, and I can't keep up. I literally can't keep up.
I mean, now they're all doing the like Gorilla Glue challenge, and I'm like, and you guys criticize us. We didn't do the Tide Pod challenge.
I was just about to ask that. Were we the ones who did it? But I wasn't sure.
No. That was Gen Z. That wasn't us. We were smart enough.
Yeah, I use Tide Pods for my laundry, not for digestion.
But yeah, so my number one here is going to be Bob and Linda from Bob's Burgers. Their show just keeps getting better. I think they're on like 10 seasons now, and I just wanted to keep talking. If The Simpsons can last for like 30 years, so can Bob's Burgers. But
Yeah.
before we get into your honorable mentions, I want to mention mine first because they're literally just honorable mentions. I want to do Gordon and Donna from *Halt and Catch Fire*, Frank Castle and Karen from *The Punisher*, Maggie and Forrest from *Lawless*, and Salim and the Jinn from *American Gods*. But Bryant, I know you had some good ones, so why don't you tell us what your honorable mentions are?
Yeah, some of my honorable mentions are Rose and Jack from Titanic.
That's a love story that ended so well.
Bella and Edward from Twilight.
Oh my god.
And you know what you do with it what you want. You take it the way you want it. Connor and Oliver from How to Get Away with Murder.
I've actually never seen that.
I think if you ever have a chance to watch the show, I think they could be, Connor mostly could be problematic, but it's an interesting dynamic. Ted and Robin from How I Met Your Mother, and the cast of Laguna Beach in the Hills.
Oh my god.
We're talking about scripted television, right?
Oh yeah. The fact that you just said Bella and Edward on my podcast, so that's the last time I'll ever hear Brian on the top 10.
It was a great time to be here.
It's funny. So the podcast that I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, right? The main Damie, they do a podcast called They Call This a Movie, and it's a podcast where they pretty much just take a very bad movie and just kind of like dissect it. And every Valentine's Day, they've been doing the Twilight movies, the 50 Shades of Grey movies, and I'm like, it's just hilarious. I'm like, God, I remember the time when people were walking around with Team Edward and Team Jacob t-shirts.
God.
What a time to be alive.
Well, you could take best couples. It doesn't mean like amazing best. It could be like best campy couples. You take it. That's why I say take it for what you want, because
there's the one Twilight fan listening to this going, I like Bella and Edward.
And guess what? You take that with you. You take it somewhere.
You like Bella and Edward. You like it, boo. It's fine. I'm not gonna be mad.
But those are my mentions.
I love your honorable mentions. I think that they just I'm still thinking about what you said, the Laguna Beach one. It's just making me oh my god. I mean, yeah, I guess like I could probably keep going with like honorable mentions, so I can't think of them really off the top of my head. For again, my American Gods fans out there, Laura Moon and Matt Sweeney, obviously. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely honorable mentions. You know what I tend to do? I'll like just like with Eve and Villanelle, right? It's like they weren't official couples, but they were enough couples. Like Frank Castle and Karen from The Punisher were never an official couple, but you're like, they were a fucking couple.
Yeah.
But Bryant, how did you like your first top 10 here?
Oh my god, we're done already. Jeez. It was great.
I do very much appreciate you being on the top 10, especially for Valentine's Day, so that we could just go down nostalgia lane. I swear, most of the things that you picked, I'm like, holy shit, that's right, that happened.
Yeah.
What I like to do always when I have people on the top 10 is to give them a platform to promote themselves. So for those who are listening, like, where can they find you? Because you are an actor, you are an artist, and I want people to know about it.
Sure. I mean, I mostly use Instagram, what the kids use. No, I need to stop saying that. I look like a kid. But you can look for me on Instagram. It's just my full name, Bryant Jaeger, BryantJager, and that's where you can find me posting some stuff and stories and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Please make sure everyone check that out. You have a lot of fantastic projects that you post up there, and you're back in New York City, so we all know that you are just going to be the next freaking big star, and you heard it first here on the top 10. So, we're making stars here at Geek Vibes Nation.
And hey, maybe I just might be on your list one day.
There you go. Exactly.
There you go.
And I do hope to get you back on another top 10. But for those who are listening, again, this is the top 10 from Geek Vibes Nation. Please let us know who some of your favorite couples are in movies and TV shows. You can, of course, find us geekvibesnation.com. It has links to all of our social media platforms. We are on YouTube at Geek Vibes Podcast. We're less than 100 subscribers away from reaching the 1,000 subscriber mark. So I truly hope that you go over there and subscribe.
Call 1-888-FARMERS to switch, and you could save an average of $470 on your auto insurance. That's a lot of money in just a few minutes. With savings like that, you could be lounging on an impractical amount of ornate and overpriced throw pillows you bought for your couch. But you won't, because you're better with money than that. That's why you're calling us in the first place. Call 1-888-FARMERS to get a quote today.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Based on average nationwide annual savings survey data July to December 2020. Underwritten by Farmers Trucker Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliate. Products not available in every state.